Good evening, night owls, and welcome back to the Midnight Manuscript, your late-night cafe for stories that keep the shadows awake. I'm your host, pouring another cup of mystery, brewed strong, with just a twist of the impossible. Tonight, the fog is thick over Surrey, and the clocks have stopped at Goldenhurst Manor, because a lord is dead in a room locked from the inside. The door bolted, the windows barred, the gun still warm in his hand. But Hercule Poirot, he's just arrived, and the little grey cells are already humming. So pull your chair closer to the fire, let the rain drum on the roof, and if your phone buzzes, ignore it. This one's going to take you all the way to the final twist. Chapter 1. The Summons to Goldenhurst Manor. The fog lay thick over the Thames like a morning veil when Hercule Poirot received the telegram. It arrived at his Whitehall flat just as he finished his morning tisane, the paper crisp and urgent in the hands of the boy who delivered it. Urgent. Lord Reginald Hawthorne, murdered in locked study. Goldenhurst Manor, Surrey. Family requests. Hercule Poirot. Come at once. Inspector Japp, Scotland Yard. Poirot's moustache twitched. A locked room, a lord, a family, mon Dieu, the English aristocracy and their penchant for drama. He folded the telegram with precision, placed it beside his untouched croissant, and reached for his coat. "Hastings," he called, "pack the valise. We depart for Surrey within the hour." Captain Arthur Hastings, ever loyal, ever slightly bewildered, appeared in the doorway. "Another murder, Poirot. Dash it all, I was hoping for a quiet weekend." "There is no quiet where death wears a coronet, mon ami." By noon the Bentley purred through the mist-shrouded lanes of Surrey, the spires of Goldenhurst Manor rising like a gilded tomb against the grey sky. The house was a monument to Edwardian excess turrets, gargoyles and windows that glittered like the eyes of a watchful beast. A liveried butler, face carved from granite, greeted them at the porte-cochere. "Mr. Poirot, Inspector Japp is in the library. The family is assembled." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Assembled, you say? Like pieces on a chessboard. Excellent." The entrance hall smelled of beeswax and old money. Portraits of stern Hawthorns glared down, their eyes following Poirot as he removed his gloves with deliberate care. A young woman in mourning black descended the grand staircase, her beauty sharp as a stiletto. "You are Poirot!" Her voice was smoke and ice. "I am Lady Beatrice Hawthorne. My father is dead, shot through the Temple in a room locked from the inside. The police are fools. Find the killer." Poirot bowed. "Mademoiselle, I do not find killers. I reveal truths, and truth, like a diamond, is rarely gentle." Behind her a shadow moved. A man in a wheelchair, face pale as parchment, wheeled forward. "Beatrice, enough. Let the detective work." His voice was cultured, weary. "I am Sir Edmund Hawthorne, the late lord's brother. The study is untouched. The gun was my brother's. The door was bolted, the windows barred. And yet—" He spread his hands, the gesture of a man who had long ago accepted the impossible. Inspector Japp emerged from the library, mopping his brow. "Poirot, thank heaven. It's a proper locked-room puzzle. No footprints in the snow outside. No secret passages, checked twice. The family's alibis are airtight. And the will," he lowered his voice, "leaves everything to a mystery beneficiary, not the wife, not the children, someone called the Gilded Bird." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A bird in a cage of gold. How poetic, how deadly." He turned to the butler. "Take me to the study. And Hastings, observe the faces. In a house of mourning, the guilty wear grief like a mask." As they ascended the marble stairs, Poirot's mind was already spinning. A locked room, a gilded cage, a family of vipers, and somewhere a bird waiting to sing. The game had begun. Greetings, detectives and curious minds. It truly warms my heart to have you with me again this evening. I'd love to know where you're listening from and whether you had a peaceful day. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to subscribe for a brand new mystery every night. Chapter 2. Arrival at the Cage of Gold. The corridor to the study was a gallery of ancestral pride. Oil paintings of hawthorns in scarlet hunting coats, their hounds frozen mid-leap. Poirot's patent leather shoes clicked a measured rhythm on the parquet. Hastings trailed behind, clutching his notebook like a talisman. Inspector Japp pushed open the double doors. Here we are, locked from the inside, bolt thrown, key still in the lock, on the inner side. The study was a shrine to masculine excess. Mahogany panels, a tiger-skin rug, a globe the size of a small planet. Lord Reginald Hawthorne lay slumped across his desk, a neat bullet hole in his right temple. A Webley revolver rested inches from his limp fingers. The air smelled of cordite and bergamot. Poirot circled the body like a fastidious cat. Time of death? Between 11 and midnight, Japp said. Servants heard the shot at 11:17 precisely. Butler was first on the scene. Door bolted, windows barred. Had to fetch the spare key from the housekeeper. Poirot knelt, examining the bolt. Heavy brass. Recently polished. No scratches. He sniffed the air. The scent of a woman's perfume lingers. Le Heure Bleu, Guerlain. Expensive. Not the late lord's taste, I think. Hastings peered at the desk. There's a letter opener shaped like a dagger, and this, he pointed to a small brass bird cage on the mantelpiece, its door ajar. Inside, a mechanical nightingale, wings spread, eyes rubies. Odd decoration. Odd. Poirot's voice was silk over steel. Everything here is a clue, Hastings. The cage, the bird, the perfume, the bolt. He lifted the nightingale delicately. Beneath it, a scrap of parchment. The gilded bird sings at midnight. Freedom is death. Japp snorted. Poetic rot. Probably one of the sun's arty friends. Or, Poirot murmured, a warning or a promise. Footsteps in the corridor. Lady Beatrice appeared, flanked by a young man in a crimson smoking jacket. Her brother, Charles Hawthorne, heir apparent. His eyes were red-rimmed, but his hands steady as he lit a cigarette. Find anything, Monsieur Poirot? Charles's voice was languid, amused. Father always said the room was his fortress. Seems even fortresses fall. Poirot's gaze flicked to the cigarette. Turkish, Sultan's blend. Your father smoked a pipe, no? Charles exhaled smoke like a dragon. Observant? Yes, I was in the billiard room with Cousin Lydia until 11:30. We heard the shot, ran here, door locked, end of story. Stories, Poirot said softly, rarely end where we think. A wheelchair creaked. Sir Edmund rolled in, his nurse, a stern woman in starched white, hovering. Reginald was writing his memoirs, Edmund said. Obsessed with them. Said they'd shake the empire. Perhaps someone didn't want them published. Poirot's eyes gleamed. And where were you, monsieur, at 11:17? In the conservatory, with my niece, Victoria. She reads to me, Jane Eyre. We heard nothing until the screams. The nurse nodded. Truth, sir. I was fetching Sir Edmund's medicine. Poirot turned to the windows. Iron bars painted gold. Snow on the sill, undisturbed. He tapped the glass. Thick, double-glazed. No vibration from the shot. None, Japp confirmed. Servants in the kitchen, directly below, heard it clear as a bell. Poirot's fingers drummed his chin. A paradox. The sound travels down, but not through glass. The bolt is thrown from within. Yet the perfume? He inhaled again. It is strongest by the fireplace. The hearth was cold, but the flue wide. Poirot knelt, shining his pocket torch up the chimney, soot, and something else, a glint of metal. He reached, delicate as a surgeon, and extracted a thin silver chain. At its end, a tiny key shaped like a bird. Hastings gasped. "The cage!" Poirot held the key to the light. The gilded bird needs a gilded key, but whose neck did this adorn? Lady Beatrice's hand flew to her throat, bare. Charles's eyes narrowed. Sir Edmund's face remained a mask. Japp scratched his head. "No secret passages, Poirot. I'd stake my pension." "Secret passages," Poirot said, "are for novels. This killer used something far more elegant. Come, Hastings. We interview the staff, and the family, separately. The cage is golden, but the bars are lies." As they left the study, Poirot paused at the door. The mechanical nightingale's ruby eyes seemed to follow him. Somewhere in the manor, a real bird was preparing to sing. And Hercule Poirot intended to hear every note. Chapter 3. The Family Beneath the Chandelier. The drawing-room of Goldenhurst Manor was a cathedral of crystal and velvet. A chandelier the size of a small carriage dripped light onto the assembled hawthorns, each face a study in controlled grief. Poirot stood before the marble fireplace, hands clasped behind his back, his small frame somehow dominating the room. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, voice soft as falling ash, "we are here not to mourn, but to see. Death has entered this house, locked the door behind him, and left us a riddle. I, Hercule Poirot, will solve it, but first, your stories." He turned to the widow first. Lady Eleanor Hawthorne, 45, still beautiful in the way of winter roses, pale, sharp, untouchable. She sat ramrod straight in a high-backed chair, black lace at her throat. "I was in my boudoir," she said, voice clipped, "reading the Times. The shot woke me from a doze. I rang for my maid. She confirmed the time, 11:18. Poirot's eyes flicked to the maid, a mousy girl trembling by the door. "And you, mademoiselle?" "Yes, sir. I mean, Mr. Poirot. I was ironing her ladyship's nightgown. Heard the bell, ran upstairs. Clock in the hall chimed 1:15. Poirot nodded. "Précis, next." Charles Hawthorne lounged against the piano, cigarette dangling. "Billiards with Lydia. We were arguing over the score when the shot rang out. Door locked. End of." Lydia Hawthorne, cousin, poor relation, 28, sat on the chaise longue, twisting a handkerchief. "He's right. I lost the game. Then the noise, like a firecracker." Her voice cracked. "Uncle Reggie." Sir Edmund wheeled forward. "Conservatory, Victoria reading, nurse fetching my drops. We heard nothing until the butler's shout." Victoria, 19, ethereal in grey silk, knelt by her uncle's chair. "Jane Eyre, chapter 23, the proposal scene. I remember because—" She stopped, cheeks flushing. Poirot's moustache twitched. "Because, mademoiselle." "Because Uncle Edmund laughed. Said Thornfield was a cage, just like this house." A silence thick as velvet. Poirot paced. "Excellent. Alibis like clockwork, but clocks, mes amis, can be wound backward." He stopped before the widow. "Lady Eleanor, your perfume. L'heure bleue?" She blinked. "I wear Mitsuko, always, yet the study reeks of it." Charles laughed. "Father's mistress, perhaps. He kept one in town. Actress, Gilded Bird, that was her stage name." Lady Eleanor's lips thinned. "Reginald's vulgarities are no secret." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The will. Inspector Japp, the beneficiary." Japp cleared his throat. "Everything to the Gilded Bird, my true heir. Signed yesterday. Witnessed by the butler and the nurse." The nurse paled. I only signed what his lordship asked." Sir Edmund's hands tightened on his wheels. Reginald was rewriting his memoirs. Said he'd name the bird, disinherit us all. Poirot clapped once. Magnifique! Motive drips like honey, but the how? Ah, that is the sting. He drew the silver bird key from his pocket. Found in the chimney, fits the cage on the mantel. But whose? Victoria gasped. My locket! It's gone. I thought I'd lost it in the garden. Poirot dangled the key. This is no locket. Observe, the stem is hollow, a key within a key. He inserted it into the mechanical nightingale. A click, the bird's wings lifted, revealing a tiny compartment. Inside, a folded slip, midnight. The cage opens, bring the memoirs. Charles swore. Father's handwriting. Poirot's smile was winter. A meeting, in a locked room, but with whom? The door bolted from within, the windows barred, yet someone entered, someone left. He turned to Hastings. The servants' stairs. Behind the tapestry in the corridor. Check the dust. Hastings scurried off. The family watched. Statues in a museum of suspicion. Lady Eleanor spoke first. You'll find nothing. We're not criminals. No, Poirot said softly. You are English, which is worse. The chandelier flickered. Somewhere, a clock struck 3. Poirot's eyes swept the room. The cage is gilded, mes amis, but the bird inside is desperate, and desperate birds sing. Chapter 4. The Locked Study and the Silent Shot. Poirot insisted the study be sealed again. No constable at the door, only Hastings, Japp, and the great detective himself. The room had been photographed, measured, dusted. Now it belonged to the little grey cells. He stood in the exact centre, eyes half closed, breathing through his nose like a bloodhound. The scent of l'heure bleue had faded, but not vanished. It clung to the leather chair behind the desk. Poirot touched the velvet cushion. Warmth? No. Imagination. Yet the chair had been sat in after death. Observe, he murmured. Lord Reginald slumps forward, right temple, gun in right hand, but the chair is turned 3 inches to the left. A man shooting himself does not swivel for comfort. Japp grunted. Suicide. Staged. Family's favourite theory. No. Suicide does not bolt the door from within after the shot. Poirot knelt. The bolt is at eye level. To throw it, one must stand on tiptoe. Yet the carpet shows no scuff. Curious. He moved to the fireplace. The mechanical nightingale sat on the mantel, wings frozen mid-flap. Poirot wound the tiny key in its breast. A tinny melody, green sleeves, tinkled out, then stopped. The ruby eyes flashed once. Clockwork, Hastings said. Pretty thing. Pretty, yes, and precise. Poirot opened the back panel. Inside, gears, a spring, and a thin copper wire leading to a minute brass hammer. This bird does not merely sing, it strikes. He traced the wire. It ran along the mantel, behind a row of books, and disappeared into the wall. Poirot tapped the panelling. Hollow. A gentle push, click, and a narrow door swung inward. A dumb-waiter shaft, no wider than a chimney, lined with velvet to muffle sound. Japp whistled. From the kitchen, straight up. Précisément, the servants' artery of the house. Poirot shone his torch. The velvet was torn in one place, a scrap of black lace caught on a nail. Lady Eleanor's mourning veil, perhaps, or another's. He climbed the shaft's iron ladder, 3 rungs only, until his head emerged into a small alcove behind the bookshelves, a perfect hiding place. From here, one could see the desk through a peephole, disguised as a knot in the wood. Hastings's voice echoed below. Found something, Poirot. Under the tiger rug, blood, not the Lord's, smaller drops, leading to the window. The window, bars painted gold, snow undisturbed outside. Poirot descended, examined the sill. A single smear of crimson on the iron. The killer climbed out. But how? With bars? He studied the bars. One was loose, pivoted on a hidden hinge, disguised by gold leaf. A push, and it swung inward like a gate. The gap was narrow, but a slim person could wriggle through. Japp scratched his head. Snow's untouched. Regardez. Poirot pointed to the ceiling. A faint line of soot across the plaster. The killer exited via the chimney after swinging the bar back, climbed the roof, descended the drainpipe, see the scrape on the ivy, then walked backward in their own footprints to the corner of the house, where the gravel path begins. No prints in snow. Élémentaire. Hastings gaped, but the bolt was thrown before the shot. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The killer entered openly. Lord Reginald expected them. They talked. The birdcage was the signal. At 11:17, the clockwork hammer struck a cap, hidden in the revolver's cylinder. The real bullet was already in the chamber, fired by a string from the dumbwaiter shaft, the sound muffled by the flue. The killer then locked the door from outside with a duplicate key, see the scratch on the escutcheon, slipped down the shaft, and vanished. Japp stared. But the gun in his hand, placed after death. The killer wore gloves, no prints, the perfume, sprayed to confuse. L'heure bleue from a pocket atomizer. A woman's touch, but not necessarily a woman. Poirot picked up the Webley. Observed the cylinder. One round fired, but the hammer, he sniffed, smells of fresh oil, recently tampered. A soft knock. The butler entered, face ashen. Sir, the memoirs. They're gone. The safe was open, combination known only to his lordship and Miss Victoria. Poirot's smile was thin. The bird has flown with the worm, but the cage remembers. He turned to the nightingale, wound it fully. This time the melody played to the end. As the final note died, a panel in the desk slid open. Inside, a single feather. Gold leaf over goose down, and on the desk blotter, in Lord Reginald's spidery hand, if I die tonight, trust no one. The bird sings for blood. Chapter 5. Poirot's Little Grey Cells. Awaken, revised with table in narrative. The library smelled of vellum and fear. Poirot had banished the family to their rooms. Only Inspector Japp and Hastings remained, the latter scribbling furiously as the detective paced before the fire. "Recapitulate, mon ami," Poirot commanded. "What do we know?" Hastings cleared his throat. Lord Reginald shot in locked study. Door bolted inside, key in lock, windows barred, snow undisturbed, gun his own, in his hand, memoirs stolen, will leaves all to the gilded bird. Bien, and the how? Dumb waiter shaft, hidden panel, clockwork bird triggers shot via string. Killer exits chimney, roof, drainpipe. Walks backward, in footprints, duplicate key for bolt. Parfait. Now, the who. Poirot stopped before the great globe, spun it idly. We have motives like confetti. Lady Eleanor, scorned wife. Charles, prodigal heir. Sir Edmund, bitter invalid. Victoria, innocent with guilty fingers. Lydia, poor cousin with rich dreams. And the nurse, always the nurse. Japp snorted. Nurse signed the will. Could have forged the whole thing. Possible, but forgery requires time. The will was witnessed yesterday. Poirot tapped the feather he had pocketed. Gold leaf, applied fresh. The bird is here, Japp, in this house. He opened his notebook and began to speak the table aloud, his voice crisp and rhythmic, as though dictating to the very walls. Suspect, Lady Eleanor. Alibi, boudoir with maid. Motive, humiliation. Opportunity, duplicate key perhaps. Suspect, Charles. Alibi, billiards with Lydia. Motive, disinheritance. Opportunity, roof access. Suspect, Sir Edmund. Alibi, conservatory with Victoria. Motive, memoirs expose past. Opportunity, nurse's proxy. Suspect, Victoria. Alibi, conservatory with Edmund. Motive, safe combination. Opportunity, slim build. Suspect, Lydia. Alibi, billiards with Charles. Motive, poverty. Opportunity, desperation. Suspect, nurse. Alibi fetching drops. Motive will witness. Opportunity medical access. He underlined Victoria's name twice with his pencil. The girl knows the safe. The locket key fits the bird. She is slim, could wriggle through bars. Yet she blushes at Jane Eyre. Innocence or artifice? Hastings frowned. The perfume, L'Heure Bleue. Victoria's young, might wear it. Or the killer stole it to mislead. Poirot snapped the book shut. We test the alibis. One will crack like an egg. He rang the bell. The butler appeared, trembling. Grimshaw, the dumbwaiter, used last night. Only for his lordship's cocoa, sir. 10:45. Cook sent it up. Cook saw who retrieved it? The footman, James. But James has the night off, visiting his mother in Guildford. Poirot's eyes glittered. Convenient. And the roof, access? From the old nursery, ladder, in the attic. Show me. The attic was a graveyard of cradles and rocking horses. A skylight hung open. Snow had drifted in. Poirot examined the sill. Scratches, fresh. A booted print, small, narrow, woman's size 5. Hastings whispered, Victoria's dainty. Or the nurse, Poirot countered. She wears sensible shoes. Below, in the conservatory, glass shattered. A scream, Lydia's voice. They ran. The conservatory was a jungle of palms and orchids. Lydia stood over a broken pot. Earth scattered like blood. In her hand, a tiny glass vial, empty. Label faded, but legible. L'Heure Bleue, sample. I found it in the fern, she stammered. I swear. Poirot took the vial, sniffed. Empty, but the scent lingers on your cuffs, mademoiselle. Lydia's eyes widened. I hugged Victoria earlier. She wears it sometimes. Does she? Poirot's voice was silk. Or do you borrow her perfume? And her alibis? Charles burst in, face thunderous. Lydia, you little fool, what have you done? Nothing, she cried. I was with you. Were you? Charles's smile was cruel. You left the billiard room at 11:05, said you needed air, returned at 11:25, plenty of time to— Silence, Poirot clapped. The net tightens, but the fish still swims. He knelt, sifted the soil. Beneath the broken pot, a second feather gold-tipped and a scrap of paper. Act 2. The bird flies at midnight. Burn after. Lydia fainted. Charles caught her, but his eyes were on Poirot, calculating. Japp muttered, Burn after. Memoirs. Or instructions, Poirot said. The killer works in scenes. This is theatre, mes amis, and the final act approaches. He pocketed the note. Hastings, fetch Victoria. Alone, it is time the little bird sang. Chapter 6. The Alibis of Silk and Smoke. Victoria Hawthorne arrived in the library like a wraith in grey silk, eyes wide, fingers twisting the hem of her sleeve. Poirot had dismissed the others. Only Hastings stood by the door, notebook poised. Sit, mademoiselle. Poirot gestured to a velvet chair. You are not accused, yet, but truth is a harsh light. Look into it. Victoria perched bird-like. I didn't kill Uncle Reggie. I loved him. Love, Poirot said softly, is the sharpest blade. Tell me of the safe. She swallowed. He trusted me. The combination. His wedding date. 1903 or 5. I fetched papers sometimes, never the memoirs. Poirot produced the silver bird key. This was your locket? Yes. A gift from Aunt Eleanor. I lost it yesterday in the rose garden. Convenient. He placed the key on the table. The clockwork bird. You wound it for your uncle? Every evening. He said it calmed him. Greensleeves was mother's favourite. Poirot's eyes softened a fraction. And last night? Uncle Edmund fell asleep at 10. I went to my room, read until the shot, then chaos. Alone? He hesitated. Charles knocked later, said Lydia was upset. I comforted her. Poirot leaned forward. The perfume. L'Heure Bleue. Yours? Victoria flushed. A sample. From Paris. I keep it in my jewel box. Empty now? I don't know. Poirot signalled Hastings, who produced the vial from the conservatory. Victoria stared. That's mine, but I didn't. The door burst open. Lady Eleanor swept in, face thunder. Leave the child alone, Poirot. She's suffered enough. Madame, Poirot said, suffering is the price of secrets. Your veil, black lace. A scrap was found in the dumbwaiter. Eleanor's hand flew to her throat. I tore it yesterday, on the greenhouse door. Greenhouse? Poirot's eyebrow arched. You were in the conservatory? Briefly, to cut orchids for the dinner table. Victoria saw me. Victoria nodded. She did, at 9. Poirot turned to Eleanor. And at 11:17. In my room, as I told you. The nurse appeared in the doorway, summoned by Japp. Sir Edmund's asking for you, Mr. Poirot. Says it's urgent. Poirot excused himself. In the conservatory, Sir Edmund waited, face grey. The memoirs, he rasped. Reginald showed me a page. About the war. A scandal. My name compromised. Poirot's gaze sharpened. Blackmail? Worse. Truth. I was court-martialed in 18. Desertion. Reginald covered it. Said he'd expose me unless... Edmund's hands shook. Unless I signed over my shares. Poirot knelt. And the nurse? She knows. Overheard. Threatened to tell Victoria. A crash from the library. They ran. Victoria stood over the fireplace, a poker in hand. The mechanical nightingale lay smashed, gears spilling like entrails. I remembered, she gasped. Uncle said if anything happened, destroy the bird. There's a cylinder inside, like a phonograph. Poirot knelt among the wreckage, a tiny wax cylinder, intact. He held it to the light. Recorded message, Hastings breathed. Poirot's smile was grim. The bird's final song, but whose voice? He pocketed the cylinder. Tonight, we play it, in the drawing-room, all must hear. As they left, Victoria whispered, Monsieur Poirot, the greenhouse. There's a loose pane, leads to the roof. Poirot paused. You saw someone? No, but this morning, footprints in the dew, small, leading up. The net tightened. Silk alibis frayed. Somewhere, smoke curled from a hidden cigarette. The killer was close. Chapter 7. The Secret of the Gilded Birdcage. The drawing-room had been transformed into a tribunal. The great chandelier blazed. Every hawthorn sat in a semicircle, faces lit like masks in a passion play. Poirot stood before the gramophone, the tiny wax cylinder balanced on his fingertip. Mesdames et messieurs, he began, voice low. Tonight the bird sings its last, a voice from beyond the grave. He placed the cylinder on the spindle, the needle dropped. A hiss, then Lord Reginald Hawthorne's voice, crisp, aristocratic, laced with gin. If you hear this, I am dead. The Gilded Bird is no stage name. It is my child. Born 1919, hidden. Mother, an actress, yes, but also my secretary, Miss Dorothy Vale. She died in childbirth. The girl was raised in secret. She is here, among you, my true heir. The rest of you, vipers, will get nothing. The memoirs name her, find her, or she finds you. The needle scratched to silence. The room erupted. Lady Eleanor rose, trembling. A bastard in this house! Charles laughed, bitter. Father's final joke, on us all. Sir Edmund's knuckles widened on his chair. Dorothy Vale, I remember. She vanished after the war. Victoria's eyes were saucers. But who? Poirot raised a hand. Silence fell like a guillotine. The birdcage, he said, is not ornament. It is cradle. He produced the smashed nightingale. From its hollow breast he drew a tiny gold locket, engraved DV to RH 1919. Inside, a curl of baby hair, blonde as corn. Lydia gasped. That hair! It's mine when I was a child. Aunt Eleanor kept it. Eleanor stared. I gave it to Reginald. A lock from my daughter. Stillborn, 1919. Poirot's voice cut like glass. Stillborn or stolen? The nurse stepped forward, face ashen. I was there. The birth. Miss Vale begged me to say the child died. Lord Reginald paid. I took the babe to an orphanage, but, her voice cracked, she was adopted by the Hawthorne cook, Mrs. Grimshaw. All eyes turned to the butler's wife, hovering in the doorway, apron clutched. Speak, madame, Poirot commanded. Mrs. Grimshaw wept. My Lydia, my little girl. I never knew. Lydia stood swaying. I'm the heir, Charles snarled. You, a scullery brat. Silence, Poirot thundered. The motive is clear. Everyone knew the will changed, but only one knew the truth of the bird. He turned to Lydia. You found the locket in the greenhouse, recognized the hair, knew you were the heir, but the memoirs would expose you, prove you legitimate. You had to steal them. Lydia backed away. No, Poirot produced the empty perfume vial. You wore Victoria's scent to frame her, climbed the greenhouse pane, your footprints in dew, used the dumb waiter, triggered the clockwork gun, stole the memoirs, hid them. He strode to the piano, lifted the lid. Inside, a leather folio scorched at the edges. Burned partially, but not all, Lydia screamed, lunged for the fireplace. Charles caught her wrist. You bitch, he hissed. You'd let us rot. Jap clapped cuffs. Lydia Hawthorne, arrest you for murder. But Poirot raised a hand. No, observe. He opened the folio. Blank pages. Only the cover remained. The real memoirs, he said, were never here. He turned to Sir Edmund. You, monsieur, you burned them. In your wheelchair, you rolled to the study before the shot. Hid in the dumbwaiter. Lydia entered openly, your accomplice. You fired the string. She bolted the door with a duplicate. You both escaped via roof, but you kept the memoirs to blackmail the bird. Edmund smiled, thin. Clever, Poirot, but no proof. Poirot produced the gold feather. Your pipe tobacco, Latakia, clings to this, found in the flue, and your nurse, he beckoned. She saw you burn the pages in the conservatory brazier at 11:30, while Victoria read aloud. The nurse nodded, sobbing. He threatened to ruin me. Edmund's mask cracked. Reginald would have destroyed us all. The girl, Lydia, she's nothing, a tool. Lydia spat. You promised me everything. Poirot's voice was ice. You both killed for a cage that was never yours. He turned to Jap. 2 birds, 1 cage. Arrest them both. As the cuffs clicked, Victoria whispered, But the will? Poirot smiled gently. Valid. Lydia is the heir, but murder voids legacy. The estate reverts to charity. The gilded cage, empty. The chandelier flickered. Outside, snow began to fall. The bird had sung. The cage was broken. Chapter 8. Whispers in the conservatory. The house slept under a blanket of new snow. Only the conservatory glowed, a glass lantern in the dark. Poirot had dismissed Jap and the constables. Lydia and Sir Edmund were locked in separate rooms, each believing the other had betrayed them. The little Belgian moved between the palms like a shadow, torchbeam cutting the humid air. He stopped at the brazier, a cast-iron dragon, mouth agape. Ashes within, still warm. Poirot sifted with a silver letter opener. Charred fragments, court-martial, desertion, veil, enough to damn Sir Edmund forever. But something else caught the light. A corner of vellum, unburned, folded small. Poirot teased it free. To my true daughter, if I die, the cage key is in the orchid's heart. Trust P, the orchid. A rare cattleya, purple as a bruise, hung above the brazier. Poirot reached into the bloom's throat. His fingers closed on cold metal. A second bird key, identical to the first, but engraved on the bow, LH 1919. Lydia Hawthorne, he murmured. The real initials, not borrowed. Footsteps on the gravel path outside. Soft, deliberate. Poirot extinguished the torch. A figure in black slipped through the French doors. Lady Eleanor, veil lifted, face stripped of powder and pretense. "You're too late, Poirot." Her voice was raw. "The memoirs are gone. Edmund burned them." "No, he burned decoy pages. The true memoirs are elsewhere." Poirot held up the vellum. "Your husband's last letter, to his daughter, hidden in the orchid's heart. You knew." Eleanor's eyes glittered. "I knew the day Dorothy Vale arrived, belly swollen, begging for mercy. Reginald sent her away. Paid the nurse. Paid me to forget. I buried my own child, stillborn, and watched him raise a Dargotute bastard in secret." She drew a small derringer from her sleeve. "The will stands. Lydia inherits. I'll see her hang first." Poirot did not flinch. "And the perfume. You sprayed the study to frame Victoria. The lace in the dumbwaiter. Yours. You helped Edmund and Lydia. Gave them the duplicate key. Why? Because, Eleanor said, if the memoirs surfaced, my shame would be public. The stillbirth was a lie. I gave the child to Dorothy. To save face. Reginald never knew." The derringer trembled. "One bullet, for the detective who knows too much." Poirot's smile was gentle. "Put it down, madame. The cage has another door." He pressed a panel behind the orchid. A click. A section of glass wall slid aside, revealing a narrow stair spiralling upward. Into the attic, then the roof. "The real escape," Poirot said. "You plan to flee tonight, with the true memoirs. Hidden where?" Eleanor's laugh was broken. "In the nursery, the cradle, lined with oilskin, safe from fire." She lowered the gun. "I only wanted to protect my family's name. By murdering its heart." Poirot stepped closer. "Lord Reginald's voice on the cylinder. Was you who recorded it, after death, using the gramophone in the study. A perfect mimicry. To mislead us into believing he spoke from the grave." Eleanor's knees buckled. The derringer clattered on the tiles. Hastings burst in, revolver drawn. "Poirot! I heard, tranquille, mon ami. The lady confesses, but the story is not finished." Poirot knelt, picked up the gun. 3 killers, 1 cage, Lydia for greed, Edmund for fear, Eleanor for pride. The memoirs? Fetch them, Hastings, from the cradle. As Hastings ran, Poirot turned to Eleanor. "You will confess in writing. The courts are kinder to remorse." She nodded, tears cutting channels through her rouge. "The orchid, it was Dorothy's favourite. I kept it alive, for her." Poirot placed the vellum in her hand, then let it be her epitaph. Outside, the snow fell thicker. Inside, the conservatory exhaled steam and secrets. The gilded bird had many wings. Chapter 9. The Midnight Visitor. The nursery smelled of camphor and forgotten lullabies. Moonlight spilled through the dormer window, striping the cradle like prison bars. Hastings knelt, oilskin packet in hand, thick, sealed with red wax. The crest, a nightingale in flight. Poirot took it reverently. The memoirs, not burned, not stolen, preserved. He slit the wax with his penknife. Pages rustled. Lord Reginald's cramped hand, ink faded but legible. "To my daughter, wherever you are," Hastings read over his shoulder. "He names Lydia, gives dates, payments, the nurse's bribe, but there's more. Sir Edmund's desertion, Eleanor's bargain with Dorothy Vale, and," he gasped, "Charles, illegitimate too, not Eleanor's son, a music hall singer's." Poirot's eyes narrowed. The heir who was never heir, anotherly, dangerous. A floorboard creaked behind them. Charles Hawthorne stood in the doorway silhouetted, a Webley, the Webley, in his hand. "Drop it, Poirot. The memoirs are mine now." Poirot did not move. "You took the gun from the study, cleaned it, returned it to the evidence locker. Why?" Charles's laugh was hollow. Because I knew father's game. The gilded bird? A myth to torment us. I searched his desk weeks ago, found the cradle's false bottom, read every page. He planned to disinherit us all, leave the estate to a charity for fallen women. Lydia was the smokescreen. He stepped closer. Give me the packet, or I shoot. Call it suicide. The great Poirot, despondent over an unsolvable case. Hastings tensed. You'll never get away. Oh, but I will. Roof's clear, snow's stopped. I'll be in London by dawn. The memoirs burn in the train furnace. And you, Charles cocked the hammer, join father. Poirot's voice was calm. You fired the shot, monsieur, not the clockwork. You were the midnight visitor. Charles blinked. How? The footprints, Poirot said. Size 9. Your boots monogrammed. Left in the attic. You climbed down the drainpipe before the shot. Hid in the dumb waiter. Lydia entered openly, distracted your father with the will. You fired through the peephole. She bolted the door. Edmund burned the decoy. Eleanor provided the perfume and key. A perfect quartet. Charles's hand shook. They'll hang. I'll be free. No. Poirot produced the wax cylinder from his pocket. Your father's real voice, recorded yesterday, hidden in the globe's base. You missed it. He wound a tiny crank on the cylinder's side. Lord Reginald spoke, faint but clear. Charles, if you hear this, you've betrayed me. The estate is yours, but only if you protect the bird. She is innocent. The others punish them. Charles's face crumpled. Lies! He hated me! Or loved you enough to test you. Poirot stepped forward. The gun, empty. I removed the rounds in the study. You hold a bluff. Charles stared at the Webley. Clicked the trigger. Click. Empty. He dropped it, sank to his knees. I only wanted what was mine. Hastings cuffed him. Yours? You're as bastard as Lydia. Poirot knelt, lifted Charles's chin. Your father's final twist. The memoirs name you protector of the estate. For Lydia. You were to be her guardian. Instead, you chose murder. Charles wept. He never told me. Outside, dawn bled pink across the snow. The cradle rocked gently in the draught. The midnight visitor had come, and been unmasked. Chapter 10. The cipher in the rose garden dawn had barely touched the frost when Poirot ordered the rose garden searched. The beds lay dormant, canes black against the snow, but the Belgian's instinct hummed like a tuning fork. Bring spades, he told the constables, and the gardener, old Wilkins. He knows every root. Wilkins, gnarled as the briars he tended, arrived with a trowel and suspicion. His lordship planted a new hybrid last autumn. Nightingale's Lament. Said it was for the memoirs. Buried something with it. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Précisément. Dig. They worked in silence. 6 inches down, the spade struck metal. A small tin box, verdigris at the edges, sealed with wax. Inside, a single sheet of onion skin, covered in numerals. 170305, 1409, 1922, 1223, 08 and 6, 1830, 04 to 2011, 11, 11. Hastings frowned. Dates? Dates, Poirot confirmed, but also coordinates. The first is Lord Reginald's wedding, safe combination. The second, Lydia's true birth. The third, he tapped the page. The armistice. But these others, look, they form a grid. He drew it swiftly. 17, 14, 22, 03, 9, 12, 05, 1923, 08, 30, 11, 06, 4, 11, 18, 20, 11. See, the bottom row repeats 11, a book cipher. Page 11, line 11, word 11. The book is in the study, the Times Book of Quotations, 1923 edition, on the desk. They hurried back. The leather-bound volume lay where Lord Reginald had died. Poirot flipped to page 11. Line 11 began, The truth is rarely pure. He counted words. The 11th, never. He repeated for each coordinate. The message emerged, letter by letter, never trust the bird that sings at midnight. Poirot closed the book. The final warning, but to whom? A scream from the conservatory. Victoria. They ran. The girl stood over the orchid, its pot shattered. Soil spilled like entrails. In her hand, a third bird key, but this one black iron, heavy, old. "It was under the roots," she whispered, "with this." She held a photograph. A young woman in Edwardian dress, holding a baby. On the back, in faded ink, Dorothy Vale and Lydia, 1919, The Cage's love. Break it with truth. Victoria's voice broke. She was my real mother. Uncle Reggie told me last week, said I was to protect Lydia, that the estate was hers, but I was the lock. Poirot took the photograph gently. "You knew the cipher?" "Father, uncle, taught me codes. Said one day I'd need them." Tears fell. "I thought the shot was suicide. I helped hide the memoirs in the cradle, but I never—" Poirot placed a hand on her shoulder. "You are the lock, but not the key. The key was always truth." He turned to the constables. "Release Lydia. She is innocent of intent. Sir Edmund and Lady Eleanor planned the mechanism. Charles fired the shot. Lydia was the bait, believing herself the heir." Japp arrived, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "And the nurse? Confessed. Took the bribe in 1919, kept silent for a pension. She winds the clockwork bird each night, out of guilt." Poirot faced the garden. The roses stood bare, but in spring they would bleed crimson. "The cipher," he said, "was Lord Reginald's confession. He wanted the truth found, after his death. The midnight song was his own voice, guiding us." He held up the black key. "This opens the manor's strongbox, beneath the library floor. Inside, the real will. Lydia inherits, but under Victoria's guardianship. The cage is broken, the birds fly free." Snow began to melt. Somewhere, a real nightingale trilled. Chapter 11. The gathering storm in the drawing room. The great drawing room had become a court of last resort. Constables stood at every door. The fire had burned low, and the chandelier's crystals trembled in the draught. All the players were present. Lydia in handcuffs, wrists raw. Sir Edmund rigid in his chair, eyes fixed on the carpet. Lady Eleanor, veil discarded, face stripped to bone. Charles, shoulders bowed, the fight gone out of him. Victoria, small and pale, clutching the black iron key. The nurse, head bowed, apron twisted in her fists. Inspector Japp stood beside Poirot. Notebook closed. He would take no more notes tonight. Poirot did not pace. He stood motionless before the hearth, hands clasped behind his back, the little grey cells at rest. The storm had broken. Only the accounting remained. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, voice soft, "the cage is open, the birds have flown. Yet before we close the door forever, let us speak plainly. There was no single murderer. There was a chorus. Each voice sang its part." He turned first to Lydia. "You, mademoiselle, believed yourself the heir. You entered the study openly at 11, carrying cocoa. You spoke of the will. You distracted your father while the mechanism armed. You did not fire the shot, but you enabled it. Greed was your motive, and ignorance your shield." Lydia's head snapped up. "I thought he'd changed the will for me. I didn't know about the gun." "Yet you knew the safe," Poirot said. "You knew the dumbwaiter. You left the perfume vial in the conservatory to cast suspicion on Victoria. That was no accident." She looked away. Poirot faced Sir Edmund. "You, monsieur, provided the blueprint. You built the clockwork trigger months ago. Your war injury left you time for tinkering. You burned the decoy pages to protect your desertion scandal. You used Lydia as bait, Eleanor as lookout. Fear was your spur." Edmund's voice was a rasp. "Reginald would have ruined me. I had no choice." "There is always choice," Poirot said. "You chose cowardice twice. Once in the trenches, once in this house." Lady Eleanor lifted her chin. And I chose survival. I gave Dorothy my child to hide my shame. I gave the duplicate key to Edmund. I sprayed the perfume to muddy the trail. Pride is a heavy chain. Charles laughed, a broken sound. Pride, greed, fear. And I chose rage. I read the memoirs. I knew I was nothing to him. I fired the shot through the peephole. I thought if he was gone, the secret died with him. He looked at Victoria. I didn't know you were the lock. Victoria's voice was steady. And I chose silence. I hid the cradle packet. I planted the cipher in the rose. I thought I was protecting Lydia. Instead, I protected monsters. The nurse spoke, barely audible. I chose money. I took the bribe in 1919. I wound the bird each night to keep the lie alive. Guilt is a slow poison. Poirot surveyed them all. 5 voices, 1 song. The midnight shot was not suicide, nor single murder. It was orchestrated, a quartet of despair, with Victoria's innocence the only grace note. He turned to Japp. The charges, Sir Edmund and Charles for murder. Lady Eleanor and Lydia for conspiracy. The nurse for perjury and obstruction. Victoria walks free. Her testimony seals the case. Japp nodded. The constables moved. As Lydia was led away, she whispered, "The roses. They'll bloom red again." Charles paused at the door. "Tell father I'm sorry." The room emptied. Only Poirot and Victoria remained. She held out the black key. "The strong-box," she said. "It's yours now, the truth." Poirot took it gently. "No, mademoiselle, it is yours. You are the lock, but also the key. Guard it well." Outside, the snow had stopped. The garden lay white and waiting. Chapter 12. The Final Twist and the Unmasking. The library strongbox yielded its secrets with a groan of rusted hinges. Poirot knelt on the Persian rug, the black iron key turning smoothly in the lock. Victoria stood beside him. Breath held as the lid creaked open. Inside, not gold or jewels, but a mahogany case inlaid with mother-of-pearl, a nightingale in flight. Hastings and Japp watched from the doorway, the firelight casting long shadows. "The final cage," Poirot murmured. He lifted the case. Latches clicked. Inside, the true will, crisp vellum, dated the day before death. And beneath it, a phonograph disc, labelled in Reginald's hand, The Midnight Confession. Poirot placed the disc on the gramophone. The needle dropped. A hush fell, broken only by the hiss of wax. Lord Reginald's voice filled the room, weary but resolute. "If this plays, I am gone. Not by my hand, but theirs. The family I built on lies crumbles tonight. Lydia, my daughter, born of love, not shame. You inherit the estate, but only if you break the cycle. Victoria, my ward, daughter of Dorothy's heart, guide her. Charles, my wayward son, forgive the bastard's birth, protect them both. Eleanor, my chain, release your pride. Edmund, my shadow, face your desertion. Nurse, your silence ends. The cipher in the roses was my map, the birdcage my warning. The gilded life we led was prison. Let truth set you free. But know this, the shot at midnight was no accident, it was me. I armed the clockwork knowing they would come. A suicide, yes, but provoked. The true crime is the cage we built together." The needle scratched to silence. The room spun with ghosts. Victoria gasped. "Uncle Reggie, knew?" Poirot nodded, eyes distant. "Oui, the paradox resolves. The locked room was his stage. He invited the chorus, Lydia with Coco, Charles in the Uchasert. Shadows, Edmund's mechanism, Eleanor's key. He wound the bird himself, set the string. At 11:17, as they schemed, it fired. He slumped, gun placed, door bolted by Lydia's trembling hand. The memoirs in the cradle? His decoy. The real truth? Here. He held the will aloft. Lydia inherits, but divided, shares for charity, for Dorothy Vale's fallen women. Victoria as executor, Charles and Edmund pardoned in writing if they confess, Eleanor a widow's portion, the nurse immunity for testimony. Japp whistled. Suicide by conspiracy, diabolical. Poetic, Poirot corrected. He unmasked them all. The final twist, no murder. A man's end, scripted by his own hand to shatter the gilded cage. Victoria wept, clutching the photograph. He loved us, in his way. Poirot closed the case. Love, mademoiselle, is the ultimate key. The birds fly now, free but scarred. Outside, the sun rose, gilding the snow. Goldenhurst Manor stood silent, its secrets spilled like petals in the wind. In the distance, a nightingale sang, not mechanical, but alive. The end. Epilogue. The Nightingale's Garden. 6 months later, spring had returned to Goldenhurst Manor with a vengeance. The rose canes, once black and brittle, now bled crimson and gold. The nightingale's lament hybrid bloomed in defiant clusters along the south wall. The house itself stood lighter. Windows flung open, the tiger-skin rug gone, the study converted to a sunlit reading room where Victoria Hawthorne, now 20 and sole executor of the estate, sorted ledgers and letters with quiet competence. Lydia had vanished into the anonymity of a Swiss finishing school, her inheritance held in trust until her 25th birthday. Charles, pardoned on condition of public confession, had taken a post in Kenya. Big game photography, far from drawing rooms and duplicity. Sir Edmund's wheelchair now rolled the corridors of a veterans' hospital in Devon. He spent his days teaching clockwork mechanics to shell-shocked boys. Lady Eleanor, stripped of title and pride, lived in a cottage on the estate's edge, tending the orchids she once cut for dinner tables. The nurse had retired to a seaside convent, her pension funding a shelter for unwed mothers. Poirot arrived unannounced on a Tuesday in May, stepping from the Bentley with the same measured gait. Victoria met him at the porte-cochere, no longer in grey silk, but in practical tweed, hair pinned back, eyes clear. Monsieur Poirot. She offered her hand. You came. Mais bien sûr. One must see the garden after winter. He surveyed the roses, sniffed the air. L'heure bleue, the real perfume, not the ghost. She laughed, the sound bright as birdsong. The greenhouse is mine now. I grow it for memory, not deception. They walked the gravel path. At the sundial, where the cipher had begun, stood a new plaque, bronze, verdigris, already kissing its edges. Here the cage broke. Let truth be the only, the lock. R.H. 1926. Poirot touched it gently. He would approve. Victoria led him to the old nursery, now a library for the village school. The cradle had been refinished, its false bottom removed. It held picture books instead of secrets. On the windowsill sat the mechanical nightingale, repaired, wings gleaming, ruby eyes replaced with clear glass. I wind it every evening, Victoria said. Greensleeves, the children love it. Poirot smiled, the rare full smile that reached his eyes. The song continues, but the midnight shot is silenced. She hesitated, then drew a letter from her pocket. From Lydia. She's learning French. Says she dreams of the roses. And this? She handed him a pressed flower, gold-tipped from the nightingale's lament. For your buttonhole. A thank you. He tucked it into his lapel. Merci, mademoiselle. The little grey cells retire happily when the garden blooms. As the Bentley purred away down the lime-lined drive, Victoria watched until it vanished. Then she turned back to the manor. Doors open, windows bright, the gilded cage now only a memory of sunlight on stone. Somewhere in the roses, a real nightingale answered the mechanical one. The song was free. If the gilded cage kept you up, smash that subscribe button like Poirot smashes alibis. Drop a bird in the comments if you're Team Victoria, or knife if you suspected Lydia from the start. And tell me, where are you listening from tonight? A rainy London flat, a silent Delhi balcony, a stormy New York subway,